The entrepreneurial journey is hard. If it was easy, everyone would be doing it, and they're not. That is why I've got a special guest with me today, and we are going to dig into the entrepreneurial journey, talk about it, and give you some tips to help you not just survive, but thrive. I am Tim Fitzpatrick with Rialto Marketing. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am really excited to have with me today Michael Budensiek of the Bald Business Podcast. Michael, thanks for taking the time to be here, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, Tim, thanks for having me. This is exciting, and you hit the last name square on the head. So
yeah. Well, it's good that I asked ahead of time, right? Yes. So it's Budensiek, people.
Yes.
Okay, so make sure we get it right. Yeah, dude. I had an interview about a month ago, and I knew the company name, but I know somebody else that has a very similar company name.
Mm-hmm.
And so I totally screwed it up. And in the beginning of the interview, she had to correct me. And so I was eating a little bit of crow. So I don't like to do that.
Hey, been there, done that. We all make mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. We all make mistakes. So, well, dude, you had me on your podcast about a month or so ago. We had a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. And I wanted to get you on to talk about the entrepreneurial journey, which we know is hard. There's ups and downs, there are highs, lows. I wouldn't have it any other way. And I think most people like us wouldn't have it any other way, but It's always good to talk about it and learn from other people's experiences. So I'm really excited to jump into this. So let's just start. Just tell me about, your journey, how it's been for you. How did you get into it? All that background information.
Yeah. So, gosh, this could be a long story, but
it's all good. We got time.
So basically, I started working relatively young, actually. When I was in the 6th grade, my parents pulled me out of our private school and started homeschooling us, which back then was kind of a trial and error thing. I mean, a lot of things in life are trial and error, which I've learned, and as you know, but it wasn't super popular then. And so me being the oldest and the first that they tried to homeschool, I got distracted pretty easily. Realized that I, liked being out of the house and liked doing other things. And so my dad was a carpenter, and he allowed me to start going to work with him part-time at the age of 13. By the time I was 15, it was a full-time job. And then I pretty much became a carpenter as well. And I did that for 7 years. During that time, I saw my dad, leading, managing. He ran the crew for several years. He owned the business for the majority of the time that I was there. And, just having those experiences working with adults in the construction industry at such a young age, really, I think had a pretty big impact on me and the decisions that I would make moving forward. But, I got to 18 years old, realized I hadn't finished 10th grade. And my mom said, look, you either need to get your GED or you need to finish your high school. And at this point, as an 18-year-old making $20 an hour, and this was even like 14 years ago, I'm not going back. Right.
Yeah.
So I went and got my GED, and my mom said, hey, just try college. I just want to make sure that you don't regret not doing it. So, I think I made the smart decision to at least give it a try. Did that first semester. Kind of the same thing. I didn't really learn in high school how to study well. So it just didn't work out. Did that first semester. I was like, absolutely not, can't do this. But I think I'd love firefighting. So I went to EMT school, went to firefighter school, became a firefighter for our local department at the age of 19. And really the entire time, I had always had this calling to get into the fitness industry. And I say calling because it was something I started working out when I was like 12 or 13. Again, a lot of it out of boredom because I was at home as a 12 and 13-year-old. And you realize when you go from a standardized school setting to what you have to learn in school is that you gain like 4 hours a day. And so I started working out at a pretty young age because of that. And so around the age of 19, 20, I was just like, I really want to train people. I really want to coach people. I really want to help people. And I always just kind of felt pulled to do that. And so at the age of 20, I said, you know what? I finished my full first year of probationary firefighting. I can always come back to this position until I'm 36 if I choose, but I need to give this other thing a try. And I found a school in Florida that allowed me to basically come in and do an accelerated personal training course. So it was just a 6-month course. It was 5 hours a day, 6 hours, or 5 days a week, 6 hours a day. And all they taught us basically is personal training. How to coach people, how to help people, how to, adjust for different body types and so on and so forth. Got out of that, immediately tried to start my own business. I looked around for places to rent, looked for places that I could, take clients and train them. And then I found an opportunity at a big box gym. And, everything in me was like, don't get a job at a big box. Don't get a job at a big box. But then I got to thinking about it and I was like, you have no experience. You need to learn. Like you don't really know what you're doing when it comes to acquiring clients. So let's just see what happens. So I interviewed there, got the job. And this is when I really started learning hard lessons, I think. Because, you do this thing where you're like, oh my gosh, I have met my goal, right? I'm in the fitness industry. Now it's going to be easy. And I'm going to love everything that I'm doing. The rest of the process is going to be a cakewalk. And 6 months into that job, my regional manager came to me and said, hey, you're not signing up enough clients. And if you can't fix this, we're going to have to let you go. And at first I was like, well, what does that mean? Like, I didn't know I needed to know how to sell and run a business in order to train people. Like, I'm just here to coach. I just want to help. And so I went to my direct manager and I said, hey, so-and-so told me that if I didn't get my sales up, my numbers up, I was going to lose my job. So what do I need to do? And they looked at me and said, I'm not sure. And so I had to decide. I had to decide in that moment. I had to decide, okay, am I going to learn what selling is, what selling personal training is, or am I just going to quit and go back to construction and maybe start my own construction company and maybe have my own crew and maybe do all these things? And, construction is hard. It's manual labor. You're out in the heat of the summer and in the dead of the winter and you're out and you're doing it. It doesn't matter. And I was like, that's not what I want. Yeah. And so I committed to learning on my own and just started finding resources online, a lot of free resources. I ended up finding like a mentor who could kind of teach me some stuff and walk through it with me. And less than a year later, I actually took over that location as the manager. I was the youngest person on staff. I was actually the youngest person on staff in the region. And I was in that position for about 2 years before the company sold. When the company sold, this was my opportunity, right? I had learned a lot. I had managed people. I had signed up clients. I had, created best months ever. I had, created lines of revenue of $30,000 and $40,000 a month for this company. And I had led that charge. So this was my chance, right? Either go do this now or get wrapped up in the new company that's offering you a job and you'll probably never do it. Right. And so that was in 2011. And I said, you know what? It's time. I took about 6 months off, quote unquote. So when you're training at a big box gym and you're managing, you still make most of your money training clients. They don't really pay you to be a manager. So long story short, I was working about 70 to 80 hours a week just because that's what was required of the job. And so once that went away, I just was like, what do I do with all my time? Because I went from 70 to 80 hours a week to just having 10 clients because those clients came with me to my new spot. And so I took about 6 or 8 months to really try to figure it out. Like, do I want a location? Do I want to train out of someone else's place? Yada, yada, yada. So anyways, as we progressed through this, end up opening my first location, my first physical location in 2013. Basically, I trained clients on the side. I worked out of some other people's buildings. People see things start to grow, and then all of a sudden they want more money from you. So you agree on a price to pay, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, business growth. We're going to charge you more." Yeah. And finally, one day I said, "Enough's enough. Like, I'm going to sign my own lease. I'm going to stop dragging my feet. I'm going to put myself out there." So me and a buddy signed our first lease and started our personal training company. And when I say started, I mean started the actual physical locations. We'd been doing it for almost 2 years, but we didn't actually get a physical location until 2013. And because I know some of the other things that we're going to talk about is going to dive into this, I'm not going to talk a lot about the rest of it. But basically, fast forward to where we're at now. It's 2020. We opened 5 locations in 5 years with that company. During that time, I also was able to start doing some small business consulting because people were so interested in how we were able to get the results that we were seeing and be so consistent with it. And then in 2018, my wife and I decided that we wanted to live in a warmer climate. So we were from Indianapolis, Indiana. We were tired of the winter, to be quite honest. And so we made a shift and we moved to Tampa, Florida, which is where we're at now. And basically sold everything and started over. So we just opened a brand new gym here in the Tampa, North Tampa, Lutz area. But obviously it's 2020. We're in the middle of a COVID pandemic. So it's been a little bit slow, right? And it's bringing on its new challenges. And I think that the biggest thing that people are missing, because I know that, my introduction, you said the Bald Business Podcast. So obviously I have a podcast that I run. It's called Bald Business, The Naked Truth in Entrepreneurship. And I started it actually this year because I've seen so much stuff out there about people who, well, I was able to achieve this in 30 days, but they don't tell you that it took them 8 years of trial and error, 8 years of practice, 8 years of developing and trying and failing and starting over and doing it again. And I've had a lot of those experiences where, right now, you would think, oh, this is the 6th gym I've opened. This is going to be cake. Yeah. It's a whole set of different challenges. It's a different location. It's a different demographic. It's a different focus. Yeah. So the challenges are never ending. And I think that if you're looking to get into entrepreneurship and you want to kind of have that control of your time per se, you also have to realize that you have to be willing to sacrifice all of your time.
Right.
And I think a lot of us get into entrepreneurship because like, oh my gosh, I would control my time. But if you're not willing to sacrifice that time, you're never going to get where you want to be. So.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I want to pull a couple things out of some of the things you said, because I think these are really important to highlight. First is what you said about, a lot of the things we see about entrepreneurs that make us feel like they've had this overnight success. Mm-hmm. It's all the stuff we see as a highlight reel. Right. And it's not realistic. And it's not reality in most cases. And so, one, I think it's really important for us as business owners to not get caught up in that. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I want to pull out of your story, which I think is really important, is your educational experience. Mm-hmm. When I was growing up, there was never a question that I was not going to go to college. I mean, it's just the way that I grew up.
Right.
But I will tell you, my view on higher education has changed dramatically over the last 10 years, for a number of reasons. But, things have changed. And if you want to get out there and own your own business, you don't need to have a college degree. Frankly, in a lot of cases, depending on where you go to college, if you got to get out and you're in $100,000, $200,000 worth of debt, and you're going to start your own business,
can't get a business loan.
No, I'm going to tell you that made absolutely no sense. Right. Because college is not going to teach you how to run a business. I don't even care if you're a business major. Business majors still don't know how to run a business. So there are so many things. If if my kids came to me now and said, you know what, Dad, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to run my own business. I'd say, okay, I don't think you should go to college. I think you should take some of the money that you would spend on college and invest in, some groups, coaching, education that is entrepreneur specific. There are so many good courses. There's so much free information. I mean, we're talking about it right now. Right. There's so much good information out there. When I graduated from college, I learned more in 6 months of running a business
just doing
than I did in all 4 years, And so most of us as business owners, we didn't know this. We jumped into it. It's the school of hard knocks that you were talking about. Right. And so, but just know that there are people out there to help you, right? There aren't really new frameworks. The frameworks for success are already out there. Right. Successful business models are already out there. You don't need to go to college to find that out. and
Well,
learn that.
I say one thing that I say is it doesn't matter what the business is, the principles are the same. So,
Exactly.
people are always looking for, well, I don't know if this person knows what they're talking about or that person knows what they're talking about because they're not in my industry. They don't know my struggles. Well, they might not know the specific industry struggles, but they know the principles behind reaching the goal.
Yep.
And those never change.
I totally agree, right? We focus on the marketing fundamentals
Of course.
because the fundamentals, the principles, they're the same.
Right.
They were the same 50 years ago. They're going to be the same 50 years from now.
Yeah.
The fundamentals, the principles don't change. Those are the foundation that you're going to build your business from. And if you skip them, you're going to run into problems. So yeah, I totally agree. I want to jump into this next topic, which health, fitness, having an active lifestyle has always been a hobby and an interest of mine. So I love this question, but I think a lot of people a lot of business owners overlook the importance of fitness and health. So let's talk about this. Tell us why you believe that it's important and it's something that we can't overlook.
So I think the hard truth here is if you don't have your health, what do you really have?
Yep.
Right. And I think that a lot of times as entrepreneurs and business owners, we can get so wrapped up in what we have going on right now, the stress of today, the stress of what am I going to do tomorrow if this doesn't work out, that we literally forget about the most important part, and that's ourselves.
Yes.
Because if we're not taking care of us, we're not going to be able to create the opportunities that we're wanting to, or the successes that we're wanting to. And this even happens in the fitness space. I coach and I've worked with probably close to 100 other gyms and gym owners. And even in this space, we have people who won't work out for months at a time. They won't eat healthy. They'll gain 20, 30, 40 pounds just like any other person, because that's what we are. We're all people, right? We forget or we lose sight of the disciplines that we need to have in order to create sustainable success for ourselves as a whole, not just in one area. Okay. So I think that it's vitally important. Number one, I tell people all the time, actually, went on a girl show a few weeks ago, and she asked me, she said, what is something that you can do to kind of like almost like not stay positive, but to keep moving towards your goals in such an uncertain time. Right. And I said, well, one of the things that you can do is exercise, because exercise creates one thing that almost everybody is missing, and it's discipline.
Yeah.
If you can create discipline in one area of your life, you can create discipline in other areas of your life. And so I just tell people, I say, just start. Like, this is not like, don't look at necessarily fitness and health as, oh, I don't have a weight loss goal, or I don't want to gain any weight, or I don't want to put on any muscle. The amount of stress that it's going to help you relieve, the amount of energy that it's going to give you on the back end, the amount of anxiety it's going to reduce. Your mental health is far more important when it comes to health and fitness than it is necessarily your physical body, in a sense of someone who tries to say, I don't really need to work out, quote unquote, right?
Yep.
And so when I say it's super important for entrepreneurs and business owners, I am talking about the mental aspects that it gives us: the stress relief, anxiety relief, the ability to create discipline, the ability to push through and persevere. Because again, those are all things that we have to do in life, especially in business. So if you teach yourself to do it in one area, you can teach yourself to do it in another.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's super important that it's not just the physical fitness, it's your mental fitness, right? And I think the analogy I always think of when it comes to fitness and health is the oxygen mask dropping down in the airplane. That oxygen mask is your mental, physical fitness and your health for you. If you don't take that oxygen mask, you're not going to survive that plane ride, right? If it drops down. Right. And it's the same thing. You may be able to go for a certain period of time overlooking your health and fitness as a business owner, but at some point it's going to catch up to you. You're not going to have energy. You're going to be tired, you know, and then that's going to impact your mental state. And, you know, as we've already talked about, this is an up and down ride. And if you don't have the wherewithal and the ability to persevere, you're not going to make it. And the other thing that I think is really important that you touched on is it's, for most people, getting into the habit of exercising is really difficult.
Right.
But if you can create a habit there, it can help you create better habits in the rest of your life and other areas of your life.
Absolutely.
You know, and it's like, I don't think about it because I've always exercised. So I just got into the habit. Frankly, I don't feel right if I don't do it, you know? So like if I have an injury or something, I'm going nuts.
Right.
Well, once you get into that place, it's not work. It's easy. You know, I've never worked out and said, gosh, that really sucked. I shouldn't have done that.
Right. Absolutely. Well, along those lines. So this was probably 3.5 years ago. I went through like a 2.5 month stint to where I fell into the trap that everybody falls into at some point in time or another. They think, well, you know, I can't take time away from everyone else for me, so I just don't have time to work out right now.
Right.
And what had happened was we were opening a location. We'd actually just opened a location like 6 months prior. And so we were like right in the middle of two things. One of them was 5 hours away from the other one. So it was like trying to balance there, plus do the new project and yada, yada, yada. It was wild. But what had happened is I was like, okay, I'm already up at 4:30 or 5, and this is my schedule. And I don't really have time to work out. I'm going to work out. If I'm going to work out, it's going to be a couple days a week. And then, well, I don't really have time to eat right. So I'm not going to be too worried about my nutrition or, you know, whatever. I ended up losing, I don't remember how much weight I ended up losing. And I don't say this in a positive way.
Right.
Because for me, it was all about just sustaining. Right. But I ended up losing like 10 or 15 pounds. And I look back at those pictures and I'm like, you looked ill almost. Right.
Right.
And the thought process there is, look, if you don't have time or you don't make time to take care of yourself, nothing else is going to be accomplished. And when I say that, I mean long-term, right? You're going to get things done. You're going to check things off the list. But ever since that time, I said, I will never do that again. And I've literally never stepped off the routine again. And that was kind of like a blip because I'd been doing it for so many years. I was just like, well, you know, it's not gonna hurt me for this little time. And it's not that it so much hurt me physically, but it was like draining mentally, right? Because it's constantly not taking the time to do things that I knew were valuable to me and things that were already a part of my routine. And so I tell people, I say, look, don't get wrapped up in this thought that, you know, I can't take time away from others, or I don't want to take time for myself because that's selfish. You have to look at the big picture, right? If you have more energy, how much more of that can you give to your team? How much more of that can you give to your family? How much more of that can you give to your friends, whatever? If you don't have that, I mean, in my opinion, that's more selfish because then you're just using everything you have for yourself.
Absolutely. You can't take care of others if you don't take care of yourself first.
Absolutely.
I totally agree. It's not selfish at all. I am going to do a better job when I'm present with my family if I've taken care of myself first. I totally agree with that. So what, this entrepreneurial journey, it's up, it's down, right? What's one of the biggest things that you think is holding people back from really reaching their true potential?
So I don't ever believe that there's ever one single thing that gets you there, and there's never one single thing that doesn't get you there. So it's a couple small things. And when I say small is because a lot of times we build these huge issues out of small bumps, right?
Right.
But one thing that I think, I don't really like to use the word mindset because it just seems so like fluff. But it really is important to work on the way that you think, first and foremost. And what I mean by that is, for every negative, you can find a positive, right?
Yep.
If you're constantly looking for the bad, you're going to find it. If you're constantly looking for the good, you're going to find it. You should stay balanced. You should be informed, right? What are my risks? What are my potential, hiccups or downfalls? But what are the things that I'm really good at? What are my strengths? What are the potentials out of this opportunity? And then work from there. I always say, capitalize on your strengths, improve on your weaknesses. And I believe that one of people's, especially when it comes to entrepreneurship and you're trying to build a team and you're trying to figure out, who maybe it's who to hire or who to focus on or who my target market should be, like that's a big thing for you, right?
Yeah.
When you're thinking about all these things, one thing that I think that people are really weak at is emotional intelligence. And the reason I say that is because they're spending too much time focusing on what if all the bads, right? Well, what if all the goods?
Yeah.
Like it's literally the same conversation. It's just the other way. And I think the only way that we get better at that is by improving our emotional intelligence. Because a lot of times our emotions are not always going to direct us in the right way, right? You have to balance the emotion with logic. And I could say probably sometimes I focus too much on the logic, right? And I don't listen to enough to the emotion. And that can also be a problem or a fault. But I think that when you look at it as a whole, right, I mean, as all people, as one of the biggest struggles that we have, it's just strengthening our emotional intelligence, the way that we respond, the way that we react, understanding that our reaction dictates their reaction. And the reason we got here from mindset is you can't really improve on emotional intelligence unless you work on your mindset, right? And so it's almost like putting the cart before the horse, right? You can't.
What's an easy way to define emotional intelligence, just in case people have not heard of it?
Yeah. So I would just say you should just, I mean, if you haven't heard of it and you're super interested in it, I would just do some research on the book, Emotional Intelligence 2.0. There's obviously an original, there's a 2.0. But the thought process is controlling your own emotions.
Yeah.
But how that affects those around you. That's the simplest way that I can put it. And it's really, the book is actually pretty cool because it asks you to take a test about yourself. And then read the book, study the book, do the things. And then again, in like 3 to 6 months, take it again and just see how you've improved. And it scores you, right? Based on the answers that you've given and so on and so forth. But I think a lot of times we have to be honest with ourselves, right? Because we do these personality tests. We do these what type of person am I test, or, do I make a good CEO test? And I think a lot of times we don't answer the questions honestly. I think we just answer them based on what we want to be, and that's not necessarily bad. But the problem is, are you doing the work to get yourself from where you're at to where you want to be?
Yeah. Well, and I think the other thing that's interesting about emotional intelligence, which a lot of people will also refer to as EQ, is that it's not fixed. Most personality tests, you are this type of person. With EQ, you can improve, you can get better over time, because it's about not only understanding your emotions, but also picking up on and realizing other people's emotions so that you can interact with those people appropriately, right? And so it's honestly, I read the book that you talked about. It's a great book.
I can actually give you an example. So, short story. I'll give you an example of how your reaction dictates the other person's reaction. Right. So this was a couple years ago. It's probably about the time we were going through the book. So I was obviously just in my mind, I was just like thinking about it a lot. You know how you do when you're reading a book or listening to a certain podcast or whatever, like your brain is just focused on that no matter what. So I'm driving to the store, and I go to pull in the parking lot, and there's a truck in front of me. The truck goes to pull in a spot, and I just pull around and go behind him and go a couple of spots over, and I park. I'm not gonna lie, I tend to drive a little bit fast. I didn't realize I was driving fast. I didn't realize I was driving fast on this morning. And this older gentleman gets out of the truck, and I open the door to my car, and he just says, "What's wrong with you speeding through this parking lot like that?" Now, a typical emotional response would be to attack back,
Right.
right?
Right.
And here's where emotional intelligence is interesting, is because they say that if you give any reaction or any action or any thought 5 seconds, if you give it 5 seconds, it'll move from the emotional part of your brain to the logical part of your brain.
Yes.
So obviously I'm thinking about this book a lot. I also don't really have the personality type that overreacts in general, but I knew that this could be either handled well or poorly. And so I paused for a second, and I said, I kind of like looked around, just making sure that he was speaking to me. And I said, I am very sorry if you felt like I was going too fast through the parking lot. And then I made a joke. I said, my wife actually says that I drive too fast sometimes too. So I do apologize if that scared you. And literally immediately his tone changed, and he said, "You know what, man? I don't even think you were driving that fast." He said, this is my third stop. I can't find what I need. I'm super stressed, and I'm about to be late for an appointment. So we have the ability, if we can have the emotional control to respond correctly to incorrect responses, and then balance that back out.
Yeah.
And I think that there could be a lot of benefit to emotional intelligence right now in the world that we're in, with everything going on. More conversations need to be had, and I don't think that screaming at each other is the best way to accomplish that.
Yeah. Well, I love the fact that you brought up emotional intelligence, because I can't even remember where I read it, but I've read it multiple times. Emotional intelligence is a huge factor in your level of success, whether you're a business owner or not. Even if you're an employee working for somebody,
right?
EQ, it is a much bigger driver than intelligence, than IQ.
Well, for anybody that's interested in getting into the field, because this is something that I've actually looked into adding to my portfolio per se, but they do say that over the next 5 to 7 years, it's going to be an exploding industry, simply because they're looking for people who have strong emotional intelligence to lead, to teach, to educate on hard issues. And so, I think that there's going to be a huge opportunity for people who are really interested in it, for sure.
Okay. So mindset, emotional intelligence, definitely holding people back.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the other ones that came to my mind, one is fear, right? Fear can be very paralyzing, and I'm trying to remember the quote. I can't remember who it was, but face your fears and the death of fear is certain. I think it might've been Mark Twain. But it's like, as entrepreneurs, we always have to put ourselves outside of our comfort zone.
Right.
If we're not stretching, we're not getting better.
That's right.
And so I do think that fear stops people from taking actions that they really need to take to grow.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen that in your experience?
It's a great question. So, 100%, but it kind of like you said with the emotional intelligence thing, it's not just strictly related to entrepreneurship, right?
Right.
I mean, we see it in fitness even all the time. Like, people are afraid to actually do their steps and lose the weight because they've been overweight for so long. They don't even know how they'd identify as a person 50 pounds lighter.
Yeah.
But in short, I was actually talking to somebody about this probably 2 weeks ago, and pretty successful guy. I mean, he's started a few tech companies, and obviously, as we know, tech tends to explode when done right. And so he started a few tech companies. He's got a pretty big network and organizations. And so I asked him the other day. I said, "Hey, do you still struggle with fear?" And he said, "Absolutely." He said, "Actually, even more so now than I did, because I have so many people relying on me." Right.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got 3 organizations, probably, 20, 30 some employees total. He said, so now, he said, 10 years ago, my decisions affected me. Now my
Right.
decisions affect me and everyone around me. He said, so yes, fear is there every single day, but this is what he said. He said there's a difference between living in fear and being afraid.
Yes.
You're allowed to be afraid. You just have to move through that. You have to push through it. You've got to know that everybody is experiencing fear at some level. Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe he's not afraid of starting a business, but maybe he's afraid of taking on, another $1 million project.
Right.
The fear is the same. It doesn't matter what level you're at. It's just different. It's different things.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. So the other one that comes to mind is asking for help. This is something I struggle with, is asking for help, right? I've always been, it's like, if you're asking for help, it shows that you're weak, right? And it's actually the exact opposite. When you have enough confidence in yourself to say, you know what, I don't know, I need help.
Yep.
And asking for that help, the help is there, right? But I think that's also something that a lot of people struggle with. Is it goes back to one of the things we talked about in the beginning, the highlight reel of success. It's like, oh, if I don't, if people don't think I'm successful, how am I going to be viewed? It's like, well, let's just stop caring about what other people think of us. Right. And when we need help, let's just ask for it, because there's so many people out there that are happy to help.
Right. Yes. So I'm actually glad that you brought this up, because I think that asking for help is it's good and bad, right? In the sense of, you should ask, but don't just ask and not try, because
Right.
a lot of times people can be what my wife refers to as assholes, where you ask a question, right? You want a response, or you want someone to give you feedback. That person gives you feedback, and then you just throw it out the window.
Right.
If you're going to ask for help, try it. Whatever was told to you, try it, right? That goes back to the fear thing. Well, I'm afraid. What if it doesn't work? What if it makes me look bad? What if it, whatever, what if? But I think that, and I've seen this happen a lot, especially when people are put in leadership positions, right? They don't want to ask the people below them for help, because that makes them seem weak as a leader standpoint, and they don't want to ask the people above them for help because, well, I can handle the job. I don't want you to think that I can't do the job, and that's dangerous, because as humans, we're meant to help each other. No single person on this earth has every single answer, and I'm just a firm believer in, you can learn something from everybody at every level, every stage. Because of perception, right? People are perceiving things differently, and so they're doing things differently, or they're taking on projects differently. So you can always learn from that, 100%, something. But not asking for help will actually push us way farther away from our goals than, living in fear.
Yeah.
In my opinion, because we can be afraid and try small things and still move forward. But if we refuse to ask for help on anything, we'll never move forward.
Yeah. Yeah. The answers to any of our problems are already out there. There's already somebody out there that has already solved that problem.
For sure.
So it's one of the things that I think is important to touch on about what you said was, it's asking for help is super important, but it's also asking the right people. You've got to be seeking advice from people that have the experience that you need, right? But yeah, I love it, man. Michael, we've had another great conversation, and I really do appreciate
it so much, man.
all the time, man. So where can people learn more about you and what you're doing?
They can always check out my website, but I think I provided you the link to my LinkedIn.
Yep, your LinkedIn.
That would probably be the easiest place to connect, just because it's fully updated. I'm on there all the time, and it's one of those things where sometimes I look at my social media accounts, my website, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's not updated, it's not this, it's not that. But you know what? That's life. And that's entrepreneurship. It's not going to be perfect all the time. It's not going to be pretty all the time. But if you continuously just take the steps every single day to reach the goal that you have in place, you will get there.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of staying consistent, like you said, working on your fear or your mindset, your emotional intelligence, creating an exercise routine, being, having a healthy mind, mind, healthy body, healthy mind. It goes both ways. And then ultimately just knowing that you're signing up for something that's not easy and it's not meant to be easy. Actually, I don't know if you've listened to much of Ed Milet's stuff, but he says that becoming an entrepreneur is the single most hardest self-development journey you will ever go on, because
I agree.
Self-discovery every single day.
Yeah,
but yeah,
I agree.
LinkedIn would be the best way.
Cool. So guys, if you want to connect with Michael, go to linkedin.com/in/Michael B. Life to connect with him. Again, Michael, thank you for being here. Thank you for those of you that are tuning in. Again, I am Tim Fitzpatrick with Rialto Marketing. If you want to gain clarity on where to focus your marketing efforts right now, hop on over to our website at rialtomarketing.com. That's RIALTO marketing. Click on the Get a Free Consult button. I guarantee you will get a ton of value from it and walk away knowing where you need to focus right now to get the best return on your investment. Remember, marketing your business shouldn't be a challenge. All you need is a plan. Take care. Till next time, we'll talk soon. See ya.